Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Claudia. I'm one of the gardeners here at Ripponlea Estate, and we're here talking about do-it-yourself veggie patches. So if you missed the first part, you can view it on the Facebook page. In that part we really talked about the setting up of the veggie patch and the planting. In this episode we're going to talk about maintenance, pests and diseases, fertilising, and how to get the best out of your veggies that you planted. So now that your plants are in the ground and you've planted maybe some herbs or some companion plants around them, now it's really about keeping them healthy and keeping them happy. So you've got to make sure that you keep the correct water up to them. So ideally you want to be probably watering them once a day, especially when they're young, the veggie seedlings. If they're in pots or polystyrene or raised beds, they might need a fair bit of water just in that initial period, just to make sure that the moisture's kept up and they can keep accessing those nutrients as they're growing. You can get trays to sit under pots that catch the water, and they can really help reduce the plants wilting in the hot sun, especially as we're moving into the later parts of spring and summer. They can be really good to reduce the amount of water you do need to give to them, or sometimes you feel like, oh, I've just watered that, why is it wilting? And those trays can just sort of provide a little bit of water to them throughout the hot day, and then when you water them, the best times either in the early morning or the late afternoon once the harsh sun's gone away, because you don't want to be watering them and that water just straight away evaporating, because it's sort of pointless. It's better to either do it early morning and then they've got that water all day, or do it late at night and then they've got all night to sort of replenish themselves and be ready for the next day. So yeah, early morning, late afternoon is probably the best time to water. Then you've got fertilising. So there's lots of different fertilisers that you can provide to veggies. You can put power feed, sea sol, there's lots of liquid feeds that you just mix a couple caps in your watering can and water them as per the direction of the packet, and that'll just provide the seedlings with enough nutrients to continue growing and flowering and fruiting, and you'll get the best tasting veggies you can if they've got the proper nutrients. So that's a really important thing, to provide them either with organic material or fertilizer. So ideally you want to be liquid feeding or fertilizing fortnightly, just to provide the plants with that continuous nutrients, because they will leach out all the nutrients they need from the organic material or the potting mix or the soil that you put them in the first place. So you need to just keep replenishing that so that they've got continuous access to whatever nutrients they need, and that'll provide the best sort of scenario so that you'll get the best veggies that you can get. These are obviously all ideals. Ideally 6 to 8 hours of sun. Ideally it gets watered morning and night. Ideally you fertilise once a fortnight. But we're all home gardeners, and you can only work within the realms that you can work with. If it doesn't quite get enough sun, if you forget to fertilise it one fortnight, just try the best that you can. And at the end of the day, you're most likely still going to get vegetables, still going to get produce, and you're still going to feel amazing that you've managed to grow that, and you can eat stuff that's coming straight from your garden, and you know what's in it and you know what you've put on it yourself. And that's the main thing. You just want to grow your own veggies, and that's awesome. So just try the best you can, trial and error, and you'll get some veggies. Now that you've got your healthy, well-fed veggies in your garden, that's when the pests like to come out and try have a bit of a share of that. So it's important when you're out weeding, watering, doing things like that, to just continuously inspect the plants and be on the lookout for the common pests and diseases. So you've got caterpillars, slugs, snails, aphids, some fungal diseases like powdery mildew, These are all things to, keep an eye out. One of the easiest ways to do that is just look at your crop and peel back some of the lower leaves and just keep an eye out, because that's where slugs and snails and things are going to be. If you have leaves that have damage on them, it's a pretty good indication that something's sharing in your veggies. For slugs and snails, it's really good to go out at night time and take a torch and just, shine the torch on the veggie gardens, because that's when they'll be out, and that's when you can grab them. A really natural, safe way to protect your veggies is just to grab the slugs and snails, put them in a jar of soapy water, and that's how you take care of them. You can, put that in the rubbish, tip it onto a different garden bed once they've died. That's a really good way to protect your crop. There's some natural organic pesticides. There's a lot of them on the market now. If you want to go the more organic way, there's also a lot of non-organic pesticides that you can spray on your veggies, snail pellets, slug pellets. There's pyrethrum to spray on for aphids and caterpillars. And yeah, some pests are all right, but once you've got a major problem, it's important to get onto it. Otherwise, they'll have more of a share of your veggies than you want. So it's really important to just keeping an eye on your veggies. And it's easier if you're continually looking at your veggies and inspecting them. It's easy to get onto a problem before it's become a really big problem. So this is some, obvious damage from a pest, whether it be a slug or a snail or a slater. And this is something that, you want to get onto, otherwise it could suddenly be in all your leaves. So if you get onto your pests early, then it's much better for the plant, and it's a lot easier for you as well. That's the really great thing about, all these organic products, and there's a lot of organic ways, even chili, garlic and detergent. Put that in a spray bottle and then you can spray that on your plants. That's a really cheap and easy way to deter some of the aphids, caterpillars, things like that. And it's non-toxic. Pets is another thing you've got to be careful of. You don't really want to be putting snail pellets down if that's going to cause problems for your pets. I've got a dog at home, so I don't use any sort of toxic products. A lot of people will be in the same boat, so even just Google some things, or go to your library and look up some common pests, because there's some really great organic ways to deal with pests rather than having to spray things that you don't necessarily want to be eating. So in terms of harvesting, with your fruiting plants like your tomatoes, cucumbers, capsicum, obviously just harvest them as they become ready. Plants like tomatoes, if you pick them a bit early, they will continue to ripen if you keep them on the vine. So that's an advantage of that. But yeah, cucumbers and zucchinis, just once they get to a relatively decent size, like a size you might see in a fruit shop or a supermarket, at that point, pick them and they're ready to go. With your leafy greens like chard, lettuces, spinach, they're good to just pick as you need them. Just grab the sort of stalk as close to the base as you can and pull them off from there. Just pinch it with your fingernail or your finger and just pick what you need. It's really good as the plant's growing to do that as it's growing, because it encourages it to grow, and you're taking off any old growth that it doesn't need to keep providing nutrients to. Then it puts all its energy into its new growth, and that provides you with better, healthier leaves. Also for things like lettuce and spinach, it'll be less likely to go to seed and keep producing for longer if you keep picking it over time and don't just leave it and pick it all at once. So that's a real advantage of just picking as you go. And obviously if you only need, 10 leaves for your dinner, then you've got that from your own garden. So that's a really ideal thing about growing veggies, is it doesn't go to waste and you can pick it as you need it. So once you've planted your seedlings or your seeds, it's important to put down a layer of mulch. This is helpful in a couple of different ways. It's really good for water retention, helps make sure the soil stays moist and cool, and also means that the soil won't become hydrophobic, because if it's exposed to too much sun and wind, it can start to form a crust which will make it hard to water in the future. It's really good for nutrients. As the mulch breaks down, it provides nutrients and organic materials that the seedlings need to grow, and also it's really fantastic for weed suppression, and that just saves you time in the long run, saves you time weeding, and it just means that your seedlings aren't trying to outcompete with other plants in that area. So mulch is really important. There's lots of different types. You can use, pea straw or lucerne's probably the best. If you've only got access to a thin layer of wood chip, you could still use that. Even just shredded newspaper or something just to cover the soil would be better than anything. So anything that you can get your hands on is better than nothing. But mulch is really important to just help provide the soil with the environment it needs to best suit the seedlings. So, the information that's being provided here is just a general sort of guide to your do-it-yourself veggies. An awesome place to start is just by, put a couple of herbs in some pots or in your garden beds and see how they go. There's lots of information out there. Access your local garden centres, nurseries, things like that. Ask your neighbours, ask your friends. Lots of people have lots of information on veggies, and everyone's got their own stories and their own tricks and tips to, get the best out of your veggies. It's just trial and error. If you start at herbs, work your way up to leafy greens, then your tomatoes and things like that. You'll have fresh, tasty, homegrown veggies in no time. And once you start growing your own veggies, you'll never be able to buy an out-of-season tomato from the supermarket ever again. You'll be hooked on growing them. So just go out there and enjoy it. Thanks so much, guys, for tuning into this two-part little series. Hope you've learnt a lot about, veggie patches and doing it yourself at home. Hopefully you'll get a good crop from your veggies and you can share them with your friends and family and even your furry friends as well.